Here's one for my business folks and maybe even my geopolitical folks. Gold demand up 42% as countries abandon US dollar in expectation of geopolitical shift. Central banks around the world are turning to gold as an alternative to the US dollar, which they see as being undermined by America's aggressive trade policy and geopolitical uncertainty. Demand for gold was up 42% year on year in the first quarter of 2018 among central banks. The World Gold Council, WGC, statistics say Russia and Turkey are the largest net buyers. Central banks added a net total of 193.3 tons of bullion in the half of 2018, an 8% increase from 178.6 tons bought in the same period last year. This marks the strongest 6 months for central bank gold buying since 2015, the WGC notes. As the first half of 2018, central banks increased their gold buyings to $1.36 trillion, around 10% of the global foreign exchange reserves. The WGC said an analyst told RT that the reason behind the move is a wish to diversify from the greenback. The United States has long used the dollar to put pressure on competitors. This has always caused anger in the world community. That's very true. And now the fight against the dollar has reached Europe, says Ilyar Muratov, president at Singapore Castle Family Office. Russia has stepped up buying gold in its reserves in the face of new U.S. sanctions and a possible disconnection from the dollar system, added the analyst. According to Muratov, a similar strategy is now being observed in many countries in Europe and Asia. China, Turkey, Venezuela, Iran, Qatar, and Indonesia are aimed at de-dollarization of economies and foreign trade. All these countries are significantly increasing their gold reserves, the expert says. As the WGC notes in its report, gold buying is not only about hedging currency risk. In an environment of heightened geopolitical tensions, gold is an attractive asset because it is not anyone else's liability and does not carry any counterparty risk, the report says. Gold is already a familiar asset class for central banks, but the changing nature of the gold market, with ever-growing consumption coming from developing economies, means that gold is increasingly aligned with emerging market economic patterns. Central banks may increasingly recognize that the rules of the game are changing. Simply said is that, contrary to popular belief, even from the very beginning, according to Gold Dollars and Power, most of the world was never really that comfortable with the United States dollar standard, which is basically Bretton Woods. You can say Bretton Woods 1, Bretton Woods 2, whatever. It's still basically the Bretton Woods dollar system. And they took it at the time because basically the United States was the last man standing. They really had no choice. They had vastly more gold than anybody else. They still had their manufacturing base, their economy base was basically untouched after the World War II. Most of Asia was pretty much decimated. Europe was decimated. Africa hadn't developed yet. So the United States was basically the only place you could actually invest. So they took leadership back in the 1940s, and just like any standard currency standard, most of the world is never very comfortable with it. And the United States especially so. The United States has used the dollar system as political pressure since the very beginning. Europe was never comfortable with it. In fact, France was so uncomfortable with it, they basically forced the United States off the gold standard in 1971, which is something that is not talked about very much. Even in Gold Dollars and Power, he kind of skates over the fact, he actually documents the fact that France forced the United States off the gold standard, but he skates over it. He didn't really out and out say it. Kudos to Dr. Gavin. But Europe and the world were never comfortable with the dollar standard. Henry C.K. Lew said China was never really comfortable with the dollar standard. And now that they have built a parallel infrastructure, financial infrastructure, we're seeing the slow shift over. You can't really do it all at once because the world economy is a super tanker. And if you turn direction too quickly, you're going to break it. But slowly but surely, they're transferring all the oil or all the assets from one system to another. This is just my opinion. Just don't take it as gospel, but this has been a very slow shift over the last, I would say, 8-9 years, give or take. So it's almost imperceptible. But the movement of gold is just one figure, just one data point. Whether it's going to be successful or not, nobody knows. But in the meantime, this is what you're looking at. This is just for my geopolitical guys, and something a little different, getting away from the gender war a little bit, getting back into something that's more meaty and maybe more important and more impactful for everybody than black male and female relationships. But anyway, thought I would drop this one for you real quick. BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one.